Hey everybody, and welcome to S.A.L.T. We are here in Keene, Texas. It's 110 degrees outdoors, but a cool 108 here indoors.
No, it's not. It's like 90 something outside.
Is it really?
Yeah.
We cool. It's a cool wave.
Yes, it's a cool wave.
It's winter here in Keene because it's below 100.
Yes, and we're only a couple degrees warmer. Or it can't be that much warmer yet because it's only been about 5 or 10 minutes since I turned the air down or up, so it's warmer in here.
And there's snow skiing in California. How unfair is that? Oh, hey, it worked. We were on earlier, except our technology wasn't streaming to Facebook. It was only streaming to YouTube, because we do YouTube and Facebook at the same time. And we had to stop and restart and get everything connected again. So I see that it's 5:31 right now. So we're a little late because our technology failed us, as it sometimes does. But I am now sharing it around. So, as I said before, I will let Miranda entertain you with her witty repertoire as I do this.
Witty repertoire. Well, I'm all fresh out of witty repertoire today, Brad.
What?
Yes.
Use my joke. My joke was fun. Welcome to S.A.L.T, where we...
salt and pepper people. With the...
Never mind. Where we pepper you with seasonings from the Bible.
Okay, that was much better. Thank you.
Why? Why do we even try?
I don't know. Okay, so since I'm fresh out of good jokes
Repertoire, yes.
and good fancy repertoire, I'm just gonna get us started a little bit while Brett is doing this. So the last couple of weeks we've talked about the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness, and so I was gonna do this more in-depth comparison of that with the parable of the sower. But you know what? That was just going to get too long, and we didn't want to be too long, and so we're going to paint like a broader picture of that. And so just to put a little bit of wrap on last week, so we kind of know a little bit of a direction where we're going with this today, is that to put the temptations of Jesus in the wilderness in a nutshell, the three temptations, while they were three separate temptations, were basically all based on to live out the words of God or not live out the words of God. And the answer to all three of those was the same, that we are to live out the words of God. And so, you know, I got thinking that, boy, Aspen and her classmates, when school starts here pretty quick, would absolutely adore it if all their teachers gave them tests where it didn't matter even how many questions there were, the answer was always the same. Yep.
I wasn't listening. I was trying to share
everything.
He
wasn't even listening to my witty repertoire. Oh my goodness.
Whatever it was, I'm sure it was brilliant.
Brilliant. Oh, yes.
Yes. All right. I think we're good.
Yes. And so today we're actually going to start off with the story of Jesus healing Jairus' daughter, and that goes really well with the parable of the sower. But now that Brett is
with
here,
you now, I'm back with you. What are we talking about?
We're talking about the parable of the sower.
Right.
Oh, yeah. Did you not even read it?
Yes, I remember now.
Yes, never mind. I read it to him.
We're sowing things.
Yes, the parable of the sower and the story of Jesus healing Jairus.
Yes. Jairus.
Okay. Yes, the man who knows how to pronounce the words. And
the farmer, howdy, went out to sow. Is that where we start?
Oh, first of all, we're going to start about that story of Aspen and her friends, remember?
Oh, yes. Aspen and her friends. All two of them.
That she got together with this last week.
Yes. She has more than two friends. Yes. She has two kitties here at home who love her very much.
And two parents.
Two parents. See? Her social life is full. She was homeschooled most of her life.
I have like 15 friends.
Oh, okay.
Is that poor Aspen, she wouldn't want us to lie about her. She actually has quite a few friends.
Yes, she does. She's quite the social butterfly at Academy.
Yes.
She was just like me. She doesn't have like one social group. She has friends from lots of different social groups. So like I never belonged to one subgroup or one group per se. I was just like around all of them. I've kind of, because I teach over there, so I kind of see that. She has friends from different social groups, which is cool.
Yeah, well, these couple girls that Aspen got together with this week, the one girl was actually, her parents were missionaries. And
Yeah, so her parents, they were over in deep, dark Africa somewhere for a while. How many, do you remember, Aspen, how many years they were over there?
Oh, like 7.
7 years or so. I mean, they were a missionary family, so she, like, you know, her formative years was in the mission field in Africa. And then they came back here to the States, for some reason, Texas, and she's at the academy now. And then it's kind of fun because they go over to the communication office at the university and hang out and talk and do fun things.
Yeah, they can't really come over here because they both have cat allergies, and we have 2 cats.
Yeah, but apparently they like hanging out in communications. It is a fun place. We have couches and big screen TV and toys, and it's kind of fun in the building when it's summer and there's not hardly anybody there anymore, but so it's kind of fun to hang out. And we always have food. And now we have cups. That was their big complaint. We didn't have cups. I ordered cups now so we can have water and drinks and things.
Okay, well, anyways, this last weekend they got together.
Oh, right.
So Aspen came home, you know, she was telling me all about their conversation and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And the one girl, like I said, she had the missionary parents, and she's going to a Christian school, and they go to church every week. And yet she was under this belief that temptation, to be tempted, is a sin. Mm-hmm. And she also had more of this like works-oriented belief system mm-hmm. in salvation rather than saved by grace. And so, of course, Aspen and her other friend told her that, you know, temptation is not a sin. Mm-hmm. I mean, really, if temptation was a sin, Jesus was tempted in the wilderness, right? Mm-hmm. And he is considered sinless. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, they explained to her the whole saved by grace rather than works thing. And she's like, really? Mm-hmm. Is it that easy? Mm-hmm. And yes.
Which, to be fair, I used to deal with all the time with teenagers when I was teaching Bible in academy. There was a lot of times there was this misunderstanding of, you know, temptation equals sin versus, you know, it not just being. But it was always sort of a subconscious, not something they really identified or recognized until we really started talking about it. And then they would be like, you know, I guess I did feel like bad every time I was tempted. Like it was committing sin being tempted. But they didn't, you know, consciously believe it. It's just kind of like, it was kind of ingrained in their, you know, kind of a subconscious reaction to temptation. But she actually believed this was, you know, sin and this was, you know, and it was interesting to hear the description of like, yeah, that's really way off.
Yeah. So anyways, it goes with what we're talking about today in a roundabout kind of way. But it is interesting that we can make things so hard sometimes mm-hmm. when in reality it's not. Yeah. It's Jesus' plan of salvation is really very simple. Yeah.
Which didn't we talk about in Sabbath school today? We did a little bit about the difference between sins and sin. You know, sins being actions and being not really the problem. It's, you know, it's not the disease. It's the, you know.
It's not sins, it's the sin.
Right.
Yeah.
And so dealing with the actions isn't really dealing with the, you know, underlying core problem. So we tend to focus on dealing with sins. If I can just stop doing this, start doing that, when really that's just like the symptoms, not the actual disease. Symptoms, that's the word I was looking for. And that's kind of what she was misunderstanding too. Is like, you know, temptation, that's not the problem, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we're going to start with the story of Jairus today. And basically, you know, his daughter was sick. She was actually dying, and he knew that. And he knew that they'd probably paid for all kinds of doctors and everything, and they knew that there was no other hope. And so he knows that Jesus is his only hope. And lucky for him, Jesus just so happened to be in town at that point in time. Mm-hmm. And
lucky for him, it was springtime and cool, as opposed to the sweltering heat in our living room at the moment. If I start to ramble, it'll be heat exhaustion. I'll just kind of fade over. It'll be fine.
He either fades over from heat exhaustion or I sit here and shiver the entire time because just how the air vents are set up.
Yeah.
It just wants to keep running and running and running, and then it's just blowing cold air on me the
yeah.
whole time. And
It's not good.
we're sorry.
And the fan is right above us too, but we have that off because that'll blow air. And actually that makes us cough, or makes me cough anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to Jairus' daughter.
Okay, so there he is, and he goes to find Jesus, and he does find Jesus. And he has his plan, is to get Jesus back to his house as quickly as possible. So he asks Jesus, explains the situation. He's like, can you come to my house? And Jesus says yes. But you know what? There is a very large crowd, and large crowds generally move pretty slowly. And then I'm sure Jairus is chomping at the bit, but he knows there's not too much he can do about it. And so then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Jesus says, who touched me? And he's probably thinking, oh my goodness, we got to go home and get my daughter healed before she dies, right? And
Yeah, I
yet-
mean, kind of to think of any time in your life where you have, some family member or something maybe, and they're sick and you're trying to get to the hospital. You got to get them to the emergency room. Think about that kind of urgency of, oh my gosh, I got to get them to the ER before they die. I've got to get him, he's got that in his heart and mind where he's gone to get Jesus, which in and of itself, this is a Roman, centurion going to, a Jewish itinerant preacher. That in and of itself is, really out of the blue and ordinary. And I imagine the crowds parted when he came through because he's a Roman centurion. And now he's got Jesus, and he's got to desperately getting back to his house, And so, I mean, it's kind of like, you imagine on your way to the hospital, and somebody says, "Oh, can we stop for ice cream?" I mean, Jairus is like, "What do you mean? Who touched you? Come on, everyone's touching you." That's So he had that desperation.
Yeah, and notice that he had the plan. The plan was to get Jesus back. And then once that was accomplished, it would have felt as if he had done it.
That was his plan. It's like, this is my only shot. I got to do this, go get Jesus, bring him back. That's the plan. All will be well.
Yeah. And but Jesus, he takes the time to stop, and, this woman finally fesses up. It was her, and he talks with her and everything, and then he says, well, go your way and be healed. And just as that is getting wrapped up right there, people come and tell Jairus that his daughter has died, and so there's no need to bother Jesus anymore. And Jesus says, don't fear, just believe. And so Jairus, he took that little seed of faith that Jesus planted in his life there, and he went ahead and he didn't just leave. He stuck with Jesus. And when they got back, Jesus took the parents and the disciples that were with him that day and went into the little girl's room, and he raised her from the dead. And what a bigger plan of God, right? I mean, sometimes we get so caught up in our plan, and it needs to get done, it's just right. And wow, I mean, those days when things ever go according to plan, our plan, it's always pretty awesome. But can you imagine how much more awesome his day was? Because Jesus didn't just heal his daughter, he raised her from the dead. And I can imagine that was a life-changing moment in his life. That anytime from there on out, when he may have heard other people talking, oh, did you hear what that man Jesus said today? He said thus and such. Oh, I don't know what that man is thinking. And yet I can imagine that he and his wife took every word that Jesus said very seriously. And they no doubt started actually living out those words that Jesus said, because they started to realize how powerful those words actually were.
And in that whole process, think that, where he's trying to get Jesus to come back to the house and heal his daughter, and where Jesus is taking his time, and Jesus stops and who touched me, and da-da-da. My guess is it would have been very easy for him to feel that he was not a priority to Jesus. He was not as important to Jesus as this woman, which again, back in the culture of the day, that would have been easily to understand because he's Roman and the Jews hated the Romans and the Romans really didn't like the Jews either. And so sure, why would this person, have me, Roman as, a high priority? So it would have been easy for him to feel like, I know I'm not the highest priority for him right now, or, I'm being put aside, and how easy it is to feel that way sometimes, like maybe we have a plan and we're going on and we just don't feel like God's giving us the importance that we think we deserve or need, and yet there's a bigger plan.
Mm-hmm. Definitely a bigger plan, yes. Yeah. So to put the parable of the sower into a nutshell, Jesus said that the sower went out to sow, and some seed fell by the wayside, some seed fell amongst the rocky ground, and some seed fell on amongst the thorns, and then in the fourth one it fell on the good ground
soil.
And the seeds that fell on the good soil produced a crop, sometimes some 100, some 60, and some 30 times as much. Now while the other seeds that fell by the wayside on the rocks and the thorns did not produce a crop. Now, of course, the seeds were the words of God, right?
Now, the sower sows the wheat of God. Sower sows the words of God. That's plain to see. And the soul is the heart in which he sows. Which heart will you be? A hard heart where Satan comes in and steals the word away. I can't remember the rest of it.
Brett's skit.
Skit, yes. It was a skit.
Okay. So basically,
Why didn't you have me sing the song? The sower went out to sow. To plant some seeds. In hopes that they would grow. Yeah, okay. That's pretty sad. Moving on. We'd sing better if it was cooler in here, but no, that's all right.
Apparently the heat messes with the voice.
It does.
Right?
It
Yes,
messes
so.
with the voice.
Okay, so I looked it up on the internet, and apparently, based on data from the last 50 years, money invested in the stock market, because I just wanted to see what money invested in the stock market was in comparison to being 160 or 30 times as much as you put in, And so basically over the last 50 years of the study that they did, your basic yearly return is 10%. Now sometimes you're not going to get any yearly return, you might actually go in the hole, and other times you're going to get more, but as a generalized rule it is a 10%. So I thought, okay, so then if you have $100 that you've invested in the stock market for the year, you'll get $110 at the end of the year. $10, right? 10%. I thought, well, I found on the internet this fancy little calculator that did all the this and that, interest and whatever. And so I was like, all right, so I put in the $100 at 10% interest for 1 year. And of course it needed to be adjusted for taxes and inflation. Mm-hmm. And with all of that added to it, it was no longer $10 return, but it was a $5 return. And I thought, okay, so let's say that you have $100 and you have a 30, 60, or 100 return on that. That means you're either going to have $3,000, $6,000, or $10,000, because that's, and what a difference your little $5 compared to $3,000, $5,000, or $10,000. What power the living out the words of God has. So say Jairus, for example, he lived out that one little tiny mustard seed of faith, and yet it grew exponentially just when Jesus raised his daughter from the dead. Okay, no fancy repertoire, intriguing repertoire.
Unless, of course, you invested in Apple, and then you get lots of return.
Right. Okay, so, right, yeah, so when we live out the words of God, which would be his words of truth, right? And Jesus also called the Holy Spirit the Spirit of truth. And so those words are full of the Holy Spirit. And the Holy Spirit is